Today you're going to solve rational equations. A rational equation is an equation that contains one or more rational expressions. So when you solve rational equations, you want to factor all denominators if necessary. Sometimes they won't need to be factored. The second thing you're going to do is multiply each term of the equation by the least common denominator of all the expressions in the equation. Then you want to make sure that you always check for extraneous solutions, and those are the values that make the denominator equal to 0. Okay, the first expression that we have, equation that we have is x minus 18 over x equals 3. Now we need to find a common denominator. So what we're going to do is we're going to read across from left to right, and we can see there's only a denominator of x. So that's going to be our least common denominator. Now what we're going to do is we're going to multiply each term in the equation by the least common denominator. So I am going to multiply everything by x. So this gets multiplied by x, this gets multiplied by x, and this gets multiplied by x. Everything has to be multiplied by x. Okay, now what happens here, this turns into x squared. Multiplying and dividing by x just turn into 1. So the equation now that I have is x squared minus 18 equals 3x. And then I need to set everything equal to 0, and then I can factor. So I'm going to move the 3x over to the other side. So subtracting 3x from both sides, I now have x squared minus 3x minus 18 equals 0. Okay, now once I have that, I can just factor, and I need factors of negative 18 that add to negative 3. So that's going to be x minus 6x plus 0. Okay, before I can say what the solutions are, I need to first check and see if I have any extraneous solutions. So we know that x cannot equal 6, or that will make my, x, we need to look at the denominator here, not the least common denominator. The denominator here is x. So we cannot have x equal to 0. Well, let's look at our solutions. Our solutions here, when we set this equal to 0, one solution is x equals 6. One solution is x equals negative 3. Neither one of these are 0, so we don't have any extraneous solutions. And our solutions are x equals 6 and x equals negative 3. All right, now the next one has more than just an x in the denominator. So let's look over to here. We have the denominators are the same. So really what you could do is you can just multiply both of these by x minus 2, because our least common denominator is x minus 2. This is to the first power, this is to the first power. So once we have a least common denominator, we multiply both of them by x minus 2, and this one by x minus 2. And this is going to reduce, this is going to reduce. So now I have 5x equals 3x plus 4. And then just move the 3x over the other side. So subtracting 3x from both sides, I end up with 2x equals 4. And dividing by 2, I have x equals 2. Now I have to check for extraneous solutions. So we look in the denominator of the original problem, and here we have x minus 2 equals 0. So we know that x cannot equal 2. All right, and that was what my answer is. So now we have no solution. All right, the third example. The third example is we have to look at our denominators. And as I read across from left to right, I see that I have to have an x minus 8. I also have to have a 2, and then I have another x minus 8, but these are both to the first power, so you always choose the highest power. So my least common denominator is going to be 2 times x minus 8. Okay, so that means I have to multiply every term by 2 times x minus 8. So, whoops, this gets multiplied by 2 times x minus 8. And when we multiply and divide by that, that's just going to reduce to 1. And then this gets multiplied by 2 times x minus 8. Okay, and the 2 in the denominator, 2 in the numerator just turn into 1. This gets multiplied by 2 times x minus 8. X minus 8 in the numerator, x minus 8 in the denominator, that just changes to 1. Okay, now we need to go back here. Here I have a 2 times the 2x minus 5. So I'm going to write that down. And then I also have, I also have, this 2 is reduced with the denominator. I have x times x minus 8. So we're going to add x times x minus 8. And then on the right side, I have these 2 reduced to 1. So I have 11 times 2, which is 22. Okay, now I'm just going to simplify here. 2 times 2x is 4x. 2 times negative 5 is negative 10. And then x times x will give me x squared. X times negative 8 will give me negative 8x. And then again, 11 times 2 is 22. All right, now we're going to combine like terms. So we have the x squared from here. The 4x and the minus 8x will give us a negative 4x. And then we have the minus 10. It's going to equal 22. And now we just need to set everything equal to 0. So we're going to move the 22 over to the other side. So subtracting 22, I end up with x squared minus 4x minus 32. Now we can factor this, or you can use the quadratic formula if you want to. We have factors of negative 32 that sum to negative 4. So that is going to be negative 8. So x minus 8 and x plus 4. All right, let's look and see what our extraneous solutions will be. We'll go back up here and we see that I set this equal to 0. X cannot equal 8. So x cannot equal 8. And there's no variable here, so we don't have to worry about that one. Well, when I go to solve this, I'm going to get that x equals 8 or x equals negative 4. So 8 is not going to work because it makes the denominator undefined. So my only solution here is x equals negative 4. All right, we are going to skip the JET question, the problem-solving question. We're going to just go right down to the work problem. These are really common problems in standardized testing. Okay, so we have a story problem here, and it says we have 2 people that are working on a puzzle. We know that one person can finish the puzzle, Natalie can finish the puzzle in 8 hours. So she can do, we're going to figure out what her rate is. In 1 hour, she can do 1/8 of the puzzle because it takes her a total of 8 hours to do that. And when Natalie and Renzo work together, they can finish a 500-piece puzzle. This 500 really doesn't matter. In about 4.5 hours. So if we add their rate times their time, for Natalie and Renzo, we can figure out how long it, we want to figure out how long it will take Renzo to finish the 500-piece puzzle if he works by himself. Okay, so we already said that Natalie's rate was 1/8. And when they're working together, it's 4.5 hours. And we don't know what Renzo's weight is, or rate. So we are going to say, just going to write some information down here. Natalie's rate is 1/8. Renzo's rate is going to be 1 over h because we don't know how many hours it takes him to complete that puzzle. So we'll just hit, for 1 hour, it's going to be 1 over h. Okay, now we also know that together it takes them 4.5 hours. And we also know that a complete job is going to be one whole, we'll just call it 1 because that represents one complete job, that finishing the entire puzzle. So what we're going to do is we're going to take, they're working together for 4.5 hours. We're going to take Natalie's rate, multiply it by 4.5, Renzo's rate, multiply it by 4.5, and then we're going to add those 2 together, and we know that that equals one complete job. So what we're trying to find is Renzo's rate, and that's the only variable that we have here, so we'll be able to do that. Okay, now we are going to do the same thing that we did up above when we were solving rational equations is we're going to find a common denominator, least common denominator. We have an 8 here and we have an h here, so in the denominator. So we're going to have a common denominator of 8h. All right, so that means I am going to multiply each. Well, first let's simplify here. We're going to turn this to, oops, I guess I didn't simplify. Okay, so we're going to multiply everything by 8h. So if we multiply this by 8h, this reduces. And if we multiply this by 8h, the hours go away. So what we have now is, we have to multiply this by 8h as well. All the terms get multiplied by 8h. Okay, so now we have 4.5 from this term. We have 4.5 times 8 for this term. And then on the other side of the equation, we have 1 times 8 hours. Okay, so when we simplify that, 4.5 times 8 is 36. And then we have 8 hours on the other side. So now it just turns into an equation that you need to solve by subtracting 4.5 from both sides, 4.5 hours. That's going to give us 36 equals 3.5 hours. So we'll divide by 3.5 hours. And we're going to get 10.3 hours. Okay, now we're going to change this 0.3 because usually you don't say 10.3 hours, you say 10 hours and how many minutes. So we know there are 60 minutes in an hour. We'll take that 0.3, multiply it by 60, and that will give us 18 minutes. Now I rounded up to 10.3 hours. Okay, so that is going to give us 10 hours and 18 minutes.